You're watching Twitter for Schools, Episode 2, Lists and Notifications. My name is Ryan O'Donnell. You can follow me on Twitter at Creative EdTech. And this second installment of Twitter for Schools is the second of a 5-part series, all designed for educators to help them learn more about how to use Twitter in their schools. And in this particular episode, we are going to focus on the idea about how to really kind of be able to tailor your Twitter experience so that you can stay focused while using this tool. Oftentimes people get quite distracted while on Twitter. And so hopefully by using the idea about lists and notifications, we can help you all make this experience much easier and more focused. And so we're going to focus on 3 parts today. The first one is what is a list? The second part is how to be able to make a list. And the third part is really how to be able to use and maximize these lists. So I'm going to jump over here and show you my Twitter account. This is my personal account, not my professional account, but not necessarily the school account. If you saw the first episode, I was jumping back and forth between this one and a school account for Rockland High School. I'm going to focus here for right now to be able to talk about what really is a list. So when you think about what is a list in Twitter, a twist really is more than anything else. You would call it a group of Twitter users, an aggregated group of them that either you can create or you can use another group that was created by somebody. So we often talk about in the Twitter, the world of following people and who my followers are. But oftentimes those numbers can get quite large, or they can be very much from different worlds. And so you could be following entertainment, sports, politics, education, and it will all come in one particular stream. But what a list will allow you to do is to be able to kind of partition each of those, so that if I'm going to create one just for education, I'm only going to put the folks who talk about education in one particular list, or like I said, sports, politics, entertainment, whatever. So what I'm going to show you here is a couple different ways to be able to do lists, to be able to help really kind of maximize your use, like I said, of staying focused. So the first thing I want to show you about where your lists are. Here on my homepage, this is my feed, and if I click on my home button, you can see it jumps from my profile to basically my Twitter feed. And what's going to happen here is this is going to be a long, never-ending a scroll of everybody I follow. Now, if you can see here on the top, I follow a fair amount of folks. I follow 1,300 different people and organizations. So my feed is going to be relatively changing all the time, and coming from a world of many different things. So I want to be able to show you how I can be able to, like I said, tailor that experience to be something much different. So how I can be able to access lists is if I'm going to go over to my profile button over here on the top right, and if I click on that, I can see this will access about how I can change it, edit my profile like I showed last time. But if I go here to list, this is going to bring up existing lists that I already have. And as I scroll down, you can see here's a couple different lists. I have one called my RUSD Innovator Cohort. I have News and Entertainment, one for Social Studies. And if I take a look at any of these ones, I can see underneath them that shows how many people or organizations are in this list. So here's one called EdOrgs, or Ed Organizations. So sometimes I want to be able to sit and be able to read some sort of more official publications, if you would. And so I've added a group of 7 different of these organizations that if I just want to be able to sit down and just read their articles. So now watch what happens if I click on EdOrgs to follow. It's going to jump to very similar to my home feed, but this one is going to be just of these organizations. And as I could scroll, if you look at the types of people, the groups that we have in here, I have EdWeek Teacher, Innovate My School, and so forth, Edutopia, and this goes on and on. Now these, not like I said, these are not individual teachers, but these are organizations. Now this gives me an opportunity for here, like I just want to be able to look at different articles. About tax bills, about integrating STEM, and so forth. So this is kind of a nice way for me to be able to get away from the normal day-to-day tweets of teachers and just look at sort of some of the scholarly journals that are being put out. So that is one particular a list that I made. There are 7 members in this list, and this is a list that it says a public list by Ryan O'Donnell. So I put this together. So I'm going to show you how to be able to create your own list. First, jump back over to your home screen, and you're going to want to get to your profile. So I click on my face in the top right-hand corner, which is my profile and settings. And from there, I'm going to go to right below profile, I'm going to go to lists. So from this page of all of my lists, I can see this is a collection of all the lists, but I also have a place right over here off to the right-hand side that says create a list. And the definition of it, a list is a curated group of Twitter users, help you become more organized. And I can click on create no list. And I'm going to do this one as a Ed Tech News. And I can give a description about what I want this to be about. Now, here's an interesting thing. I can make this public or private. Private is only something that you can see. And you would think, well, I would probably want it private. But what's interesting about a public list is we can share them out. I'm going to show you a little bit of the why this is possibly a good thing. I tend to have all of my lists being public because basically if I put a list together of, like a one I showed you before about educational organizations, some people may want to be able to see that list and say, hey, I'd rather just be able to use something that somebody else did. So I'm going to keep this as a public list and put some stuff in here and under the description, news about technology, and hit save list. Now it says I can be able to search. So find users by name, and I may not necessarily know any, but let's say if I just said, let's just search for education technology, and we see what can kind of come up. So it's going to bring up using this particular phrase, it's searching for people. Remember, people can also be organizations as well. So if I click on here, top or latest, it's going to bring up the actual tweets themselves, but these are actually looking for accounts. So I can see here's TED Talks, one called Educational Technology, and so forth. And I can start to scroll. Let me try to play with, check with some of them. So I'm going to check out this one here, Edudemic. I've heard of that before, so maybe let me research a little bit. I'm going to click on that particular account, and it's going to show how many followers they have, and I can start to scroll and see kind of what some of the things that they're talking about. Like, what's this one here? This is an interesting something that they retweeted. They talked about schools of distinction, or here's a survey about middle schoolers. So let's say I've spent a little bit of time browsing through these, and I really kind of like this. Ooh, how to keep your students engaged in class, and then a link to an article from Edudemic. Perfect. 6 tips for keeping my students stay engaged in class. All right, I really think I want to be able to follow Edudemic, and not necessarily just follow. That's what the follow button would do, but I want to be able to add them to this list. So instead of hitting the follow or unfollow button, if you notice there's 3 dots over here on the right-hand side. When I click on that, it says add or remove to lists. So when I click on it here, it's going to bring up all of those lists that I have already done. And so my most recent one was EdTech News. I'll click on that. Now, for me, I want to be able to, let's say, hey, they're also an organization. I may want to add to them to that existing one I've done before. And also, if I didn't have one created in the beginning, I can click this as well and make a brand new list. But all I need to do is put the check mark, hit the X to get out of it. And now when I go back to myself and click on my lists, and I can see here is EdTech News, and there's one member, the one that I just added. And if I click on that, it'll bring up just a feed of them. Let me go back and show you, since I added them to the other one, the EdOrgs to follow. I did have 7, now there's 8. So now when I click on this, as of 27 seconds ago, this is now a feed of just those particular tweets that have come from those 8 organizations. So there's TED, there's EdWeek, Innovate, and let's see if we can see one from what we had just added. And the only organization to all of these tweets that come in your list are all going to come from a chronological order. And so this is a list. I'm not seeing that necessarily one pop up right away, but you get the idea that this is that list. Anyway, so that's about how to be able to create your own list. The next thing I want to be able to have you do is show not necessarily about learning or getting new ideas, but I really kind of think that you can find a great power in list in terms of connecting with your educators who are at your whatever organization you're with. So I'm going to say, for example, for the school that you're in, or let's say the district, I want to be able to just connect with those particular people, because if I go to my home feed, I mentioned I follow a fair amount of people, and you will as well too, and you're going to start to see it's from a lot of different things, and things are going to come in very fast. Every few minutes possibly you can have some stuff coming in. So what's going to happen if you have some stuff from some of the teachers who are tweeting out that you may miss because it just falls through the cracks? So I'm going to show you how to be able to create a list that is just of the folks in your organization. Like I did before, I'm going to click on my name, I'm going to go to lists, and I'm going to create myself a new list. I'm going to say this is Rockland USD educators. I'm making a list of just the teachers who were in my district. not necessarily just teachers, principals, anybody in the district, because I really want to be able to see what they're doing. And so what is this description? News and, how about this? News from the folks at RUSD. And we even have a hashtag. Our hashtag is RUSD Proud. And this is just information about me. And I'll make this it's going to be a public list. And nobody is in this list right now. So how am I going to go find them? So if I'm going to go searching for some of my teachers, I may not necessarily find them. So here's a couple tips about if you want to be able to start getting your people in your organization. Here's my 2 tips. One is good old-fashioned email. Go over to your email, and you can maybe make an all call, and just say, "Hey everyone, I am getting on Twitter," and I won't write the rest, but basically I'll summarize it, saying that I'm getting on Twitter, and I'd like to be able to hear from all of the folks in my school or my district who are on Twitter. So if you happen to have an account, why don't you shoot me an email back with your username? That's the most simple way. Put out an all call. You can do that to your entire staff. I wouldn't necessarily do this something like a district wide, but if you feel comfortable enough, you can reach out via email to try to get some names. So, and then once you have those names, I'm going to jump back over here. We can start to find those particular people and add them like I did before. So that's one, but way if you're basically starting with nothing. But for the most part, I'm probably assuming that you probably have a person or two who you can connect with. And so I'm going to show you how to be able to take a person you already know. So I'm going to go to my school district. I'm going to search for one of our rock stars. His name is Craig Haviland. And I follow him already, and he follows me. And I can see Craig's account, and we follow each other. I can see here it says that he follows me, and I'm following him. So what I now need to do is take a look at not necessarily his tweets that he's doing, but I want to show you about where it says following and followers. These are 2 different. The following is how I can see at a glance who Craig chooses to follow. And followers is the opposite, which people have decided to follow him. Now, although I don't manage Craig's account, for all users on Twitter, you can see which people follow them and which people they are following. So this is an interesting, following a breadcrumb, if you would, sort of strategy to find sort of those degrees of separation. I want to be able to take a look and see who are some of the people that Craig likes to follow, and maybe I can connect with some of them. So for me, I'm looking for connections to the folks in my district. So if I click on following, I can start to scroll here a little bit, and so I can see there are some names. And there either will say follow or following, because, for example, like here, I can see Shannon shows up. Shannon is blue because on my account, I am following her already, whereas Jennifer Powers is somebody I am not. And so this is a place where I can start to look and find people. Now, interesting also, too, as we've set up our account, remember I told you before about how you put your name, your username, and then a bit of a description about you. And I can see Shannon Gomes here. She's a teacher in our district, but she hasn't put anything in her description. So at a glance, it would be hard to tell necessarily who she is. Whereas suppose if I go a little bit farther down here, I can see this person, Lila McIver. I can see that she put her name, her username, and then I can see, look at, she described who she is. She's a 3rd grade teacher, not in my school district, but at least I know a little bit about that particular person. So I'm going to start scrolling and looking for teachers who are in my district that I either know by name or that I know because I can read their descriptions. And so interesting enough, I can look down here in the bottom corner and I see, hey, here's somebody, Cindy Camelucci. And it says the name of one of the schools in my district. It's actually the school that Craig teaches at, and I don't follow this person already. So now I can click on Cindy and find some more information about her account. But more importantly than that is I want to add her to the list. I want to add her to my Rockland list. So if I click on follow, I don't even need to follow her. So here's an interesting thing. If you want to limit your number of followers, you can be able to access all of a feed of these people by adding them to a list, but not actually following them. Most people usually will follow and add to a list, but that is an interesting a choice that you can have. So if I click on those 3 dots over here, and I'm going to go now to add or remove from lists, and I'm going to add her to a list of people that I have, like we said before, Rockland USD educators. and add her to that list. Now, that was the one I just made, but I'm actually going to add her to the one right below it because this one called Rockland USD Peeps is one that I have already set up. And I'm going to show you what that master sort of list looks like. So I've just added Cindy to that list. And now Cindy will actually get a notification as well, too, on her end that, hey, Ryan O'Donnell has added to a list called Rockland USD Peeps. And so now let me show you. I can jump back over to my account, go to my lists, and I'm going to show you. Right now we only have the one member in that one, and that was just Cindy, but I'm going to scroll down a little bit more and show you my real one here, Rockland USD Peeps. And so this is the description. It's staff members from Rockland Unified, and I have 122 members in here. So this is a pretty robust list for me. And so now this is the power for me as somebody who wants to connect with people in my school district and be able to see what they're doing. So basically it is Twitter of just those folks, of 122 people. This is the tweets of all of these people. So as I scroll, it is an ongoing list of all of these, throughout time. Keep going and going, going, going. So these are the tweets themselves of what they're sharing. Now, what I can do with this, I can now have a much better opportunity of not letting things fall through the cracks. So from here, I can talk about using these buttons across the top. Now, these buttons are all what we're going to be talking about in our next episode is what is a reply, a retweet, a like, and a direct message will all be about. So that will be episode 3 that'll be coming. But as I scroll, I can see here something from Janie Johnson. This is funny. Best use of duct tape. They took their principal and they duct taped her to a wall. And I'm going to click on the heart button and say I like this. Like I said, I'll talk more about this later. And here's a neat tweet. This one comes from one of our teachers in our district, and she says her name is Lori Kircher, and she says Merry Christmas from the Rock Creek broadcast team, and she is sharing out. Look at this, a YouTube video that she's talking about of their broadcasting group that the kids have put together. Hey, that's fantastic. I want to give that thing a like as well too. And so this gives me a wonderful way I can quickly at a glance access all of them. And so this is where I think the real power of the Twitter list can kind of work for you. I'm going to go back to the top of this because these are just the tweets. Now, who is in this list? From this page, if I wanted to, I can also see the members themselves. So now this is a list of all of those 122 of just their particular accounts. And I can see all the particular people. And I mentioned before, like about if you follow them or not follow them. And these are some of the people that I tend to follow. For me, for the ones who I haven't, to just be totally transparent, I just forgot to follow them. Like there's Cindy. We just added her into the list, but we didn't follow her. But I can actually click on follow here as well too. Now, the last piece I wanted to be able to show with you is the idea that, remember I mentioned before about public or private? So this is 122, and this is a list that I made. Other people may want to be able to see that list. So if I click over here, 9 other people have subscribed to my particular list. So if they want, they could be able to access this list. And when I add people or take them away, it'll always be there for them. And I can see these 9 subscribers. These people are now have access to this list and can do many ways the same sort of a thing. Now, if you want to, you can be able to do something like this as well, is that you can be able to share this with people. Because if you look up here at the top, this whole the website, twitter.com, there's my name, then it says lists, Rockland USD Peep, and members. I can actually copy that list. I'm going to go back to my email address because now I can do something instead of an all call. If I wanted to, I could be able to share this with somebody. So let's say I'm a principal at my school and I have a couple assistant principals, and I could say, hey, APs, here is a list of the teachers who are on Twitter in our district. And I can paste that link and tell them that, hey, these are some folks that we may need to follow, or you could be able to add this list. So I can directly send this particular list to other people so they can now follow those. So I hope by having a quick look at lists will give you a better idea about how to be able to kind of see the power in terms of aggregating that. The one final thing I want to be able to show you is not necessarily lists, but a thing called notifications. What's interesting about notifications is this is going to give me heads up and announcements about when a particular person will tweet. So I'm going to jump back over here to Twitter, and I'm going to take a look at all of these people that I have here, and I'm going to say, you know what, as a a user of Twitter, I have to manually go and access my list every single time. So I need to make a conscious sit down. Okay, I'm going to sit on the couch and I want to be able to open up the list, see what my people are talking about, and start making comments, replying, and all that kind of stuff. But what if it's something quite important that I would love to get notified about a particular person who is tweeting? So I'm going to show you what that looks like. I'm going to pretend that I'm going to go over here and take a look at our school district. I'm going to go to Rockland Unified and say, as a user, I really want to be able to see when Rockland Unified tweets. And so that's here's the follow, unfollow. To the right of them, if I click on these three buttons, there is the add and remove from lists. But if I go a little bit farther down here, there's this one called turn on mobile notifications. By turning this particular thing on, I'll have a notification that says you're now going to receive mobile notifications. So every time that Rockland USD tweets, I'm going to get a notification. So this is could be quite useful if you want to be able to start focusing and be able to follow a particular person or an organization so that you can be able to comment and know what's happening with them. So for example, like follow a particular school or follow a district is a wonderful way to be able to stay connected with them, and you can get those notifications. Some people may find it a bit obtrusive that I'm getting these notifications, particularly if it's something that's going to be, if they're going to be tweeting often, and you just can simply just go back over here and turn off mobile notifications if you want to be able to turn that off. So I hope by using these two tools, the notifications and the list, that you can be able to help tailor your experiences a little bit better while using Twitter. And like I mentioned before, please, give a watch to our next upcoming episode, which is going to be all about how to be able to use those likes, replies, retweets, and so forth. So thanks for giving us a watch, and we'll check you next time.